Hmm. Okay. Oh,
Does say reading and transcription started by Tara Lucas.
okay.
I
Thank you.
started that, but the read AI was already up before I started the recording.
Huh. It'd be nice to know who. I mean, I guess it's possible. I did it. We're getting there, but I think we still need a few more folks. So, oh, thank you. I was gonna do it. Thank you, though, Veronica. I appreciate it. Interesting. Five. Sorry, just checking numbers of folks to see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Okay. All right. We're getting close. And we have our speaker, so even better. We don't have any action items today, so we can get started, but I'd like to give people time just in case. Although I do know some folks let me know that they weren't going to be able to join just because of legislative hearings. More on the state agency side of things. We'll get started at 10:05. Oh. And Jess makes 10. So I guess we can get started. I was just about to ask you to join us. So, all right. Okay, it is 10:04 and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Let's start with roll call. See who's here. All right, Kathleen Rooney, I'm here. Tara Lucas.
Here.
Robin Shishido is not here, and I believe Larry, you are his representative for today.
I am. Good morning. I'm here.
Great, thank you for joining us. Nice to see you.
My pleasure.
Heidi Hanson Smith.
Hi, everyone. Heidi's
All
here.
right. Russell or Luke, I don't think they are here today. Is anybody here on behalf of DLNR? I don't think so. Okay. You let me know. Leah Laramie, are you here? I don't think so. Nicole Chernohorsky for Chris Junker.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, thank you. Sierra Whiteside. You on? Okay. Yamato Sasaki. Yeah. Here. Jesse Domian.
Good morning. Here.
All right. Michael Moole. I didn't see Michael here. Although I heard they had a lot of folks for their new Safe Routes to Schools coordinator, so maybe we'll get some better presentation from them. I know he's swamped. Kurt Watanabe, I saw you on here. You're here, right?
Good morning. I'm here.
Hi. Great. Tommy Noyes.
Here, thank you.
James Burke. I didn't see James here today. Okay. Jessica Thompson. Jean Torres. Okay. And then I don't believe is there anybody here from Senator Lee or Representative Keela's office by any chance? No. Okay, and then guest, can you just announce yourself and your organization just so we know who's here? If you don't have audio, you can also put it in the chat. I'm sorry, who is it?
This is Doreen from Representative Keela's office.
Oh, hi, Doreen. Thanks so much. I'll put you up with his. So
thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. So who else do we have?
Bev Brody from Get Fit Kauai.
Hi, Bev.
Hey. And I think that Michael is moving. I think they're moving back into their offices this week.
No,
so.
I'm here actually.
Oh,
Sorry,
yay, Michael. How's it?
I had some technical difficulties getting on today, so I'm here.
Yay, Michael's.
Yeah, sorry,
I was just going to go to bat for you.
No, we moved back in a couple weeks ago, but
I know.
It's still kind of a mess.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're getting settled.
I have windows now, which I didn't have before. Look at that.
Woo! Very exciting.
Was that snow outside?
Of course, they make me a silhouette when I turn my camera that way. So.
You're gonna have to get a special light so that it shows off your face. And
I actually have one, but it's not very good. But it doesn't really do enough with that big sun back there. It's much better.
Yeah. All right. Who else? Michael, I marked you present. Who else do we have on here? We also have our speaker, Marisa. Hi. Go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself? Let you do it.
Hey, Marisa Jones with Safe Routes Partnership. Nice to meet you all or see you.
Oh, and James, we got you too. No. Okay. And there are a few other folks on. Can you introduce yourselves just so we know who's here?
Hi, my name is Heidi Weber. I am a parent to an elementary student and a middle schooler, and I'm also on the Pearl City Neighborhood Board.
Great, welcome. Anybody else? I see a few other names, but maybe you put them in the chat.
Good morning, Kevin Richardson from the Deputy Attorney General.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. You are assigned Deputy AG. I'm so glad you could make it. So lots of things moving and not sure how to do them. So thank you. Okay.
This is Patty Hizzy-Stavrakis. I'm the East Hawaii Healthy Eating and Active Living Coalition Coordinator with Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Great. Anybody else before? Okay. All right. There we go. We have quorum too. Lovely. Okay, so we do have to take care of some administrative effects. We need to do approval of the minutes. We have 4. I will entertain, well, first off, are there any, we'll do one at a time. Let's just to make it stepwise. Were there any comments or edits on the September 24th? If anybody can remember back that far, you all have had the drafts for quite some time. This is just approving them for just good practice, really. So if there are any comments, let me know now. If I got that you were there but not there or anything like that. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 24th then.
Motion
Anybody?
to
So
approve.
moved.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jesse, all right. So, and then can I get a second?
Seconded by Tommy Noyes.
Great, okay. And are there any objections? All right, hearing none, so approved. Next up, October 15th, 2024. Are there any edits or comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Who's the fastest?
I move to approve the minutes of the October meeting. This is James Burke.
All right, and then a
Seconded.
second? Jesse,
Yeah,
all
seconded.
right. Okay, are there any objections to approving the minutes? All right, so approved. You guys are so good. Look how fast we're going through this. Lovely. October 29th, are there any edits or updates to the minutes? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I
This is Michael
move
Moore.
that, go ahead.
All right, we'll change it up. Michael's approving. James, you want a second for me then?
I second.
All right, sounds good. And are there any objections to approving the minutes? Okay, hearing none, so approved. And then the last one is the November 26th minutes. Are there any updates or edits or issues with it? Okay, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, and then can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, and are there any objections? All right, so approved. Look at that. Record time, y'all. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We will reflect that on the website now that they're all approved. So next up, we have a presentation by Marisa from Safe Routes Partnership. I'll just turn it over to her.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathleen. And let's see if I can pull up my slides. I'm sorry, I should have tried this before. There we go. So nice to see so many familiar faces on this call. Let's see, sorry, I don't really ever use Teams. Can you see my slides?
Yes, although there we go. Now it's the full presentation mode. So
fabulous. So we are so pleased to talk a little bit today about the 2024 Making Strides State Report Cards. I think that this has been shared with you in the past, and typically this is an hour-long webinar, and it's a really long report, and I've got about 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm not going to go into everything. What I really want to focus on today is where we see that Hawaii is doing an amazing job and where we see some opportunities for improvement and ideas from other states and other places on how you might work towards those improvements. So I'm with Safe Routes Partnership. We're a national nonprofit that works to make it easier and safer for kids and people of all ages to walk and bike to and from school and throughout their communities. Our organization has had the wonderful fortune of collaborating with many of you on this call over, honestly, decades. So it's really nice to see many of you that we've worked with on Safe Routes to School projects over the years, on Safe Routes to Parks, on the King and Eisenberg street mural. So lots of familiar faces and nice to be in this space together. Okay, so just really high level, we have done these state report cards every 2 years for the past 10 years. And really the goal is to have a snapshot of how supportive each state is of walking, bicycling, and physical activity. And we're really looking at state policies and practices that influence a community's design and ability for people to be physically active through walking and biking and active transportation. I'm putting a lot of these slides in here just so that when I share this with you, you'll have access to them. So that's why I'm skipping through them. Basically, we try to take an asset-oriented approach. We don't grade. We don't say like, oh, Hawaii is better than Arizona, which is better than Nebraska. And the state report, so we try to identify, here's what every state is doing well, and here's where areas of improvement are. This is what the state report card looks like, and this is a snapshot of Hawaii. So overall, Hawaii gets 132 points out of 200 points, which is in the third highest category. So what this tells us is that there's a lot of good work to build on. And so you can look at this more closely. Honestly, on our team, and when we're meeting with states or champions within states, we really encourage you to look at this as a roadmap. Like here, all of these things are validated by research to have an impact on a community's ability to walk, bike, move around safely, be physically active in your community. And so you can look at this as really a roadmap for where these opportunities for improvement are. And so that's, I'm not going to go into every single one of these today. But we'll really, again, focus on where those opportunities are. Here's a snapshot of across the country. So the first core topic area centers on complete streets and active transportation policy and planning. In the report itself, we go into how every single indicator is scored, what the source data is. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But when I look at this core topic area, one of the areas that I see as opportunity for Hawaii is to adopt goals to increase walking and bicycling mode share. So we know that what communities or states plan for is what ultimately gets measured and what momentum, what action gets behind. And so with this, we're really looking at whether or not your state has a plan with specific goals. Like, oh, we want to grow walking mode share from 2% to 5%, or bicycling mode share from 1% to 3%. I mean, obviously we'd like those to be higher, but that's really what we're looking for, is a specific goal articulated by the state that then gets measured, because that is what we have seen drives action to support that mode shift. Other parts of this, you know, the state is doing fairly well. There's opportunity for improvement on the complete streets policy, but it's probably not where I would encourage you spend all of your spend your efforts. The next core topic area is focused on federal and state active transportation funding. So this is really one of the biggest things that we look at, is really understanding, what does your state do with money from the federal government that is intended for walking, bicycling, and safe routes to school? And then similarly, what does it do with its own state revenue? This, again, like, I'm not going to go into every single indicator here, not just for Hawaii, but all across the country. This indicator looks like a rosier picture than possibly reality because of changes in the bipartisan infrastructure law that required us to sort of give states a blank slate. But really with this, what we want to see is that your state is keeping the money from transportation alternatives, which is the largest source of formula dollars for walking, biking, and safe routes to school, and actually spending it on those kinds of projects, not transferring it to other uses. Then we want to see that the state is actually holding competitions and awarding projects and obligating those funds, which means that they are supporting local communities to get through the permitting process and getting to that next step of payment. So by and large, Hawaii is doing well, though we can talk more about this because the report card data obscures a little bit of history with the way we had to score things. But the next thing is an area, again, where I see great opportunity for your state. So by law, now states need to define and prioritize high-need communities, and that can really mean anything. That's up to the state to define, and Hawaii complies with that. But one of the things that we know to be true is that just from administering this program and tracking it for the last 13 years, and even in its prior iterations before that, this is a federal aid program that requires a 20% local match, non-federal match, which 20% of $1 million project can be really too expensive for small communities or lower resourced communities. And so one of the things that we have seen states do, one of the things that honestly we lobbied for in the infrastructure law was to give states more flexibility on that match. And so we have worked with a number of states, and I have an example later in here on taking advantage of new provisions in the law on how to lower the match for communities. And so that is honestly an area where I see really great potential. And there are so many options in the law, and we've got great examples from other states. So I'm just flagging that as like a possible thing to work on. So state funding for active transportation, this we're really looking at state revenue. So funding that is not federal in nature. Hawaii is doing a great job on this as an organization that is really committed to making sure that people and communities who have been historically and contemporarily harmed or not benefiting from transportation investments feel the benefits of those investments. We're always interested in how states are looking at that. I mean, the backdrop here is that we're 8 days into a new administration that is not interested in this kind of thing. And so just naming that we're up against a really different backdrop right now, but this is something that we have been interested in and tracking for the last 10 years. So Safe Routes to School is the third core topic area in the state report cards. And certainly this is the program that our organization holds near and dear to our heart. We helped create this federal program 20 years ago. It's no longer a standalone federal program, but it still exists in all 50 states. And obviously states like Hawaii are really doing some exemplary work, committing to having committees, putting state funding towards Safe Routes to School. And so we really commend you on that. And we also know that there's always room for improvement. And one of the areas that we see for potential improvement in the Safe Routes to School core topic area is the fourth one down. So providing Safe Routes to School planning grants or mini grants. And so we recognize that often it's challenging for a community to get started administering or launching a Safe Routes to School program. And so we have seen states that have grown really effective Safe Routes to School programs use planning grants and mini grants as a strategy. And it lends itself particularly well to Safe Routes to School, where sometimes we get started with something like Walk to School Day or Bike to School Day or Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, or, okay, we're having a community engagement event where we're doing a walk audit. We just need a little bit of money to get that started. And meanwhile, we're learning what it means to apply for grants, administer grants, pull the right people together. And so that's an area where I think there's potential for Hawaii. But certainly, as I mentioned, you're doing so many great things as it is. You have state funding for Safe Routes to School, funding Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure projects, which certainly is fully allowable under federal law. And yet we see some states that just say like, nope, we don't want non-infrastructure. So it's really great that you all are doing that. You have dedicated staff focused on Safe Routes to School. Another area for potential, again, sorry to harp on planning, but again, we have the research that shows plans ultimately lead to, in the communities that end up having higher mode shift and more physical activity, originally there's a plan that's helping to effectuate that. And so this is one where we would encourage you to work towards a state Safe Routes to School plan, beyond just incorporating it into an active transportation plan, if possible. And then finally, I'm sorry, this is like the depressing core topic area. This is really about active neighborhoods and schools. So we're looking at shared use of school facilities and school siting, which is the land use laws and guidance that dictate where schools physically get located. So overwhelmingly, we've seen minimum acreage requirements, which say, you know, that school has to be on at least 45 acres. And like, you know, I'm in downtown Philadelphia right now, like around 45 acres. We got to go really far. So nobody's going to be able to walk and bike to get there. And the reason I say this is the depressing indicator is because this is the one where we've seen the least movement over the years. And frankly, we hear more from communities that are contending with school closures than school building. So this is not one where I'm going to make some really concrete recommendations, because I think focusing on the match, focusing on adopting statewide mode shift goals, developing a safe routes to school statewide plan, and focusing on the safe routes to school mini grants and planning grants are both more actionable and can help with different community engagement and stakeholder engagement towards your larger statewide safe routes to school goals. Again, this is the most truncated version of this presentation. We have so many supplemental fact sheets that explain here's how to use them. And then we also created a table that says, like, okay, here's the indicator. Here's what you can do. Here are resources to take action. And then, of course, our team's always happy to help work on these things. So I mentioned that I would give some examples. So honestly, like, this is one of my favorite projects that I've ever worked on. I've been with the partnership for 9 years. So this directly came out of the state report cards. Louisiana was having a really hard time getting small communities to be able to access the transportation alternatives program, because even though they wanted a walkable downtown, these are tiny communities with very low property tax bases. They had no way to achieve the 20% local match. So we worked with them. We worked with some public health partners to build a relationship with their state DOT. And then we coached them on the new provisions in the law that would enable them to lower the match. They chose to do it for small communities. You can choose to do it however you want. So they lowered the match from 20% down to only 5%. And what this meant is that in the first 10 years of this program, they only had 3 applications from communities under 5,000 people. After we worked together to make that change, they had 15 applications from rural communities that first year. And that's $13 million in awards that went to communities under 5,000 just that year. And this money continues. I want to say in perpetuity, but at least for 2 more years, and then we have to reauthorize transportation again. But it's been going on for a long time, so we hope it keeps going. I talked about 2 opportunities for planning and goal setting, both the adopting goals to increase walking and biking mode share and a statewide safe routes to school plan. I wanted to share a really amazing safe routes to school plan that we just worked on with the community, but we haven't delivered it to the client yet. So obviously I can't share with you. So this was something that we worked on with our Safe Routes to Parks plan, which I know several of you, we worked on with you at the state level. This is one that we worked on with at the community level. And this was in Boulder, Colorado. And honestly, when we started on this project, we did not have the buy-in from the decision makers that we needed to have buy-in. And so it was a great opportunity to plan community engagement events to cultivate that buy-in. And we're an organization that really focuses, again, like on asset orientation, and we're never going to like shame anyone into doing something. We're going to get you on board through showing you the possibility and finding the right messengers. And so ultimately worked with stakeholders in this mobile home community in Boulder, ended up getting agency support, and we delivered this in October of 2024, and it's already led to $8.5 million in infrastructure improvements directly in the community that this plan was for. So again, we are firm believers in planning and really recognize both like the community building and infrastructure and funding goals that it can lead to. And then again, mini grants and planning grants. So, I'm just trying to give examples of things that we've worked on. So this is in Southern California. This was providing mini grants to 26 communities in Southern California to really make sure that there's a low barrier to accessing funds for communities that, again, like don't have the capacity or currently don't have the knowledge and skills to apply for and manage larger scale grants. And so it's an important way to build capacity of mini grant recipients to receive funds and manage grants, and engage community, build support for safe routes to school and active transportation. Meanwhile, testing strategies and making sure communities feel like they are part of the solution, not like something is being done to them. And again, all of these, everything that we have, but yeah, these are just, we work with communities all across the country. Here are ways that we work with communities. And sorry, I'm going to stop sharing now. But all of the, all of the indicators are, we have great examples from other states. Sometimes it's just helpful for us to know, like, okay, did any of this resonate? Are there things that you're interested in? Like, and then we can show you, like, okay, here's how Michigan structures their mini grant and planning grant process, or here's what Arizona has done for the match, or here are all the different ways that the match can be lowered. Or let's look at Minnesota's statewide Safe Routes to School plan. How could that be applicable here? So I know that's like a whirlwind, really quick overview of the state report cards. But if you take anything away, it's mostly that Hawaii is doing so much good and there's a lot to build on, and there are still great opportunities for improvement. And change, like positive change happens in all kinds of communities. And, we're certainly here to help and answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Marisa. Does anybody have any questions for her? We have a little bit of time. I don't want to get like too much in the nitty gritty, but just because we do have other topics to hit, but I want to give it space. All right, Yamato.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. In the examples you gave, these small communities, what were what was the funding used on? Was it like infrastructure projects or non-infrastructure? What kind of things do small communities like to fund?
You mean for like ones where we lowered the match, like in Louisiana, or like the Southern California mini grants?
Yeah. Both. Yeah, the mini grants and then also the lowered match.
Sure. So I'll share the presentation with Kathleen, and I linked to all of those reports so you can like look at them in full detail. For the mini grants, those are both, we typically see those as either non-infrastructure. So it's like an engagement event, or like, okay, we're going to have an event where like a bike rodeo or something. And we're also going to pilot curb bump outs, for example, and get people's feedback on them. So both temporary infrastructure paired with either community engagement or an education or encouragement event. The report that I linked to in Southern California, it was like 26 communities. They all did really different things. None of those were intended to be permanent infrastructure, and that was just like the structure of that program. With Louisiana, so that's Transportation Alternatives Program funding. That is intended to be built infrastructure or safe routes to school non-infrastructure, which is the only non-infrastructure allowed under that federal program. And so in Louisiana, they were actually only applying for infrastructure. So sidewalk connections, many of them were safe routes to school or safe, like making their main streets more walkable. But yeah, those were all infrastructure projects, and they were like, we had a workshop with them, with the DOT, to walk them through the application and get them on board. And they were so inspired to know that this kind of funding was available for them, and so motivated by the fact that the DOT had lowered the match requirement for them, because they were like, just because we're rural doesn't mean we don't want to walk, and doesn't mean we don't have safety issues. And I can picture one that was like a high school that basically had like a 2-block long parking lot that there was no designated entrance. And so it was really dangerous as kids are walking along the road, and just their peers who are, 16, 17-year-old drivers just pulling in any which way in the parking lot. And so they were proposing putting in a sidewalk and then having really clear entrance and exits to the parking lot. So all kinds of things in small and rural communities.
Any other questions? Oh, Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thanks so much. That was a great quick presentation. I just wanted to ask real quick. I know we worked on shared use agreements with schools, but Hawaii, because we just have one school district, we can't do separate agreements with all of our public schools, but every public school has the option of people can use facilities. They just have like use agreements with schools and communities and like sports teams and things like that. So it seems, I'm just curious if you have any ideas, because there's kind of a lot of points involved in that. And it seems to me that most of our rural and more of our kind of at-risk communities actually have really great relationships with the schools where they're open, because those are kind of like their community parks too. So just, I know we don't have a lot of time, just wondering about your thoughts on that, and if there was some things we could do to kind of bolster what we do have.
Yeah, that's great. So fortunately, Hawaii actually gets full points on the policy related to school siting. The one that it doesn't get full points on is incentivizing that. So there are some places that incentivize shared use. I'd be happy to, I have to be honest with you, like I'm our funding person. So literally ask me anything about funding and I got you. I'm not our shared use expert. So I will connect with my colleague who works on shared use and see if we can find and send over an example or two on states that are doing well on that indicator.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Sure.
Jeff?
Thanks again for being here. This is probably a bigger have time.
Jess, it's really hard to hear
Too
you.
hard to hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
It's still pretty low.
This is my new job, so.
Yeah. Do you
Well,
want
I can try.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
if you want to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Now we've lost you entirely. Okay. Okay. I think she said she's putting it in the chat. So, okay. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? I just, thank you so much for joining us. I really just wanted folks to kind of know that this is a big resource. I know some folks obviously did, but we cited the scorecard in the report to legislature. And as we continue to move forward, I think we'll be looking at a lot of the other stuff, but I didn't want to, have it be a select group. I wanted the entire committee to know that this was a resource for whatever they might be doing as we go forward. So, okay. I'm trying to see. I was trying to give Jess a moment to finish typing before we transition. Well, while we're doing that, I will make one sort of heads up. So right now for the members on your calendars, there is a series that's the old series. And then there's an updated one that is the current January. So I'm working with Sherry, who kind of, commands the meeting situation. The series should stay on your calendar. And then as each successive meeting comes through, we will send an updated one that'll say the month and the title for it. And that'll be the current one. This way you have a placeholder on your calendar, but they've decided, they gave me the reason, but now I can't remember what it is. So Tara, if you remember what it is, that each one will have its own call-in information as we go through the months. It'll be easier to manage it kind of longer term, as well as not hopefully have as much confusion. I guess we'll see how it all works. So, because I know that some of the folks who received it from me, they said it wasn't a series. And so, yes, the ones that say January or February or March will not have that in there. But hopefully this all works. So, okay. And then Jess wrote about the federal funding, giving some of the updates from the federal administration and the new executive orders that have come down on this topic. Okay. I think
you can see my face. I'm screaming. I mean, honestly, like I don't have a crystal ball. And even as we're talking, like I just got a Washington Post alert that like maybe things are changing. So here's what I would say as somebody who's, having conversations on the Hill and reading some probably more about this than most people ever want to. I think programs that are the formula programs, like transportation alternatives, are going to be okay for the time being. I don't know how much detail to get into. Like originally there was an executive order pausing all disbursements of federal funds. That got walked back within a few hours. We have this spreadsheet of every program that the Office of Management and Budget is interested in freezing, and the Surface Transportation Block Grant, which Transportation Alternatives is a part of, is not on there. I don't have a crystal ball, and like as much as I like to think I'm an insider on federal policy, I'm not that much of an insider, but like I think that we should be concerned about the discretionary programs. So that's like Safe Streets for All, Reconnecting Communities. But all of these things require an act of Congress to fully undo, and I don't know that the Republican Party has the margins to do that. But those discretionary grants are administered by the administration. So even if they put things out that comply with law, they can take actions that don't really make these work or happen. I mean, honestly, like we are in a total state of uncertainty, but we feel bolstered by the formula funds that our key programs live within. Sorry, trying to keep it diplomatic and nonpartisan here. And I'll just make a plug. We write a federal policy blog post where we try to like make this information accessible. So we'll be continuing to do that and trying to give you the inside information that we have in as, non-alarmist and practical way that we can. So I hope that's helpful, but
Great.
nobody really knows is the short answer.
Yeah. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. And we have about 20 minutes left, so I think we'd like to dive into a few other things. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So
thanks for having us. Take care.
All right, bye. Okay. Okay. Well, I, for some reason, don't, let me see. I can't seem to share my screen. Give me just a second. Let me see if I can fix this problem. Settings. All right, I am not sure. Let's see if I can make this work. Privacy and security, screen recordings. Okay, and then and give permission to start sharing. Oh, does that work? Sorry. Okay, it looks like I'm not gonna be able to do it right now. So I will send out the PowerPoint presentation. It was really more to guide our discussion. So I apologize for that. I wanted to let everybody know that the final report is on the website. You can link to it right there. It takes you to the Hawaii Department of Transportation's list of reports that they have to file for the legislature. So you do have to click a second link, but it is 100% available online, as well as all the updated materials. We are up to date, and that continues. For future presentations, continuing on the theme, there is also a National Center for Safe Routes out of the University of North Carolina. And Nancy is going to be presenting to us on some of the other states. And then after that, Kurt from the County of Maui is going to present on his program, rounding out our sort of series on the counties and what they are doing. After that, I haven't quite figured out where we're going with the speakers. So if you have additional requests, Tommy, I know you talked to some of the pathway folks, but I'm not sure if we need them or if we should talk to some state DOT programs. I had a really interesting conversation with the folks from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation with their program, which is, I think a network of, 10 people. So, and stuff like that. Yamato said that she loved to hear from DOE. We had them in November. So I'm not sure they will, necessarily come back to present. It was more from the student transportation perspective with the buses and some of the things that they're doing. I know they're pushing a few things along, so they might be willing to come talk about those when they're launched, but not yet. So yeah, but we will keep that in mind. So I still have a little bit of time. We're talking April, so I don't have to figure it out immediately. With the final report to legislature, I wanted to give everybody an opportunity, if you had a chance to look at it in its final form. I don't think a lot of it really changed, but I wanted to sort of offer it up if anybody had some feedback or thoughts, or now that they've had time to really sit down with it a bit more, not during the holidays, if there were any comments. And then I can also share feedback I've received from some other folks in talking about the report. Is anybody raising their hand? Sorry. Nope. Okay. So the main feedback that I got when we were talking with folks about the report and what it was saying was the absence of state projects. That and to be clear, there were a lot of questions on the upfront about like what could we use, and they weren't available for the final report. But on subsequent discussions, there is a list of a lot of projects that probably qualify from past discussions. I can share the link afterwards so you could see what that list was and is. And so, Tara and Robin graciously updated it. So which ones are still out there that, need funding and which ones don't and stuff like that. So we do have now, similar to the list that we have for the counties, we have a larger pipeline of projects. They have not all been vetted for their geolocation. So like, are they all within a mile of a school? But in some preliminary review of it, we have easily, I would say, 20 on the list that are definitely within a mile of school, sort of mimicking what we found in the report, right? Which is that most of the projects and most of the places where people live and are safe routes to schools, right? Like a lot of them are in that mile. Obviously, it depends county by county, but so far on that list of reviewing it, they're coming in, almost all of them qualify. There's a few that don't, that look maybe a little bit touchier, where they kind of are, I would say, accessing natural resources like beaches and trailheads. And so they start maybe within a mile of a school, but real close, right? But really are trying to serve sort of that access point. So I'm not saying they don't qualify, they do, but they don't, the travel isn't really geared. It doesn't look like that. But I think they can still be evaluated. So yeah, and yeah, so that's kind of the feedback. Are there any thoughts about that or feedback from anybody? Okay. I do think and we don't have to make the decision today, but I think based upon that feedback and that oh yes, Jesse, go ahead. Sorry.
Do we have a time frame for what next steps are now that we've, submitted the final report and we have an idea, we're hoping to get those additional funds released? Do we know when this may start to come into fruition and we can start planning and acting on it, or is that still up in the air?
That's actually a big part of the remaining discussion today that I don't think we're going to get to, so I'm going to try and seed. So, so I think what I did do is I went and looked back at what we kind of wanted to achieve on the front end. We do still face a sort of a constraint. Let me rephrase that. The committee has the ability to recommend into the future how we think monies in the Safe Routes to School Special Fund should be spent. That doesn't disappear. HDOT's ability to obligate it, though, does end currently in June 30th, 2024. I think sort of following on Jess's question, Tara or Larry, are you, I know some money has been put into the administration's budget, and then there are also bills that are coming through that would impact the Safe Routes to School special funding in terms of additional resources. Are you guys tracking those? Would you be willing to maybe, you know, report out on those on the February meeting?
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, I know that there I know that there was in the administration's bill, you're asking for authority, I think, in the next fiscal year to spend additional funds in your budget, like that was in there. And then I know that there are also some additional bills trying to add to the Safe Routes to School special fund. And I was wondering if you guys were tracking those, and would you be willing to kind of talk a little bit about them from the administration's perspective at the February meeting?
So as far as the plans for the funds we have budgeted, I think it will depend on the recommendations received from the committee.
Okay. What does that mean exactly?
So DOT is tasked with expending the funds, and then the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee is tasked with creating the Safe Routes to School plan, making recommendations to identify projects that could be funded, review project proposals and select priority projects within 1 mile of a school.
Okay. I guess like sort of to that, but if the budget is approved with the 2025, 2026 in it, does that mean that your authority to obligate and expend the money extends past June 2025?
So the FY26 requested budget is because we didn't spend the funds last year.
Yeah, yes. So I guess that's my question though, like if that budget goes through, are you able then to expend into the future?
Yes, so then we would have the authority for FY26.
Okay. Okay. And then in addition to that though, there are, I think, 3 bills that add to the special fund that are potentially out there. I don't know their status necessarily. So I think it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so based upon that, we are coming up on time. I did want to come back to sort of Jesse's question, because I think we do need to have some discussions about how to continue to implement each one of these components. So when I went back to our original task, you know, it's that we need to develop the comprehensive statewide Safe Routes to Schools plan and program, right? And we have talked about how to do that within an existing contracting mechanism. We have wanted to invest in a stronger network of Safe Routes to Schools staff. And then the third piece to what Tara's sort of talking about is we need to kind of create this priority list now, which would come some sort of combination, I think, of the countywide projects, potentially the state projects, which would, you know, we'd have to vote on that recommendation to allow the inclusion of state projects into our priority process. And then I think evaluating the projects that we have based upon the criteria that and form that Yamato and Jess kind of created and that we've revised to match the final report to legislature at this point in time. So I think there's a lot of things in that, and I'm not sure we exactly know how to go about all those, at least I don't. And so I think what we are going to have to start doing is having deeper conversations about how to manage or how to approach this within the construct of the committee, within the construct of HDOT's processes and what they need from us, and then also how to do it in a way that like makes sense given that we are a committee, a volunteer committee, because I'm not quite sure what that looks like quite yet. Originally, I had wanted to dive in and go through each one of these, but given the timing, I'm not sure we're going to be able to. I would like to maybe start the conversation on the Safe Routes to Schools comprehensive plan and that approach. But I think we're real tight. Honestly, I think we should just wait. So I would say stay tuned because I think, well, Tara, would you like to share the update that you shared with me just so everybody has that information about available contracts?
Okay, hold on. Let me look for the email.
So Jesse, sort of to answer your question, is that until we evaluate the projects themselves and kind of make a priority list, they can't necessarily move forward. And I think we haven't really figured out how to do that effectively. And so that's kind of like, who's on that? Does it need to be a pig? You know, the committee has to do it, but there's also a lot of people on the committee who are potential grantees and or outside of government where it may not be appropriate for them to participate in quite the same way. And those are some of the questions I think we have to kind of figure out. And then, like, you know, and there's one piece of it, which is that, you know, who does the committee is responsible for doing a lot of this. But I think it's not an obvious path set forward at this point. Like, we have the pipeline of projects. We have a lot of things to choose from, but then now the narrowing would have to occur. And who gets to do that in a way that's like fair and accessible and transparent, I think is not obvious. Like for instance, like in my organization, I'm not allowed to go all the way through this process as a member of my organization. And so I think we have to figure out then, like, okay, who does that? Does the pig have to do it and then come back with recommendations? How does that work? And I don't have answers for that quite yet. Sorry, go ahead, Tara. I figured I'd fill the space.
Okay, so as Katie said, the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee is tasked with developing a comprehensive statewide Safe Routes to School plan. DOT offered use of our open-ended contracts, and there are a few that have the capacity.
Yeah, so we've identified some. I think the question is how to make a decision with one going forward.
Do you want me to name who the consultants are?
I don't know. Is that okay? Yamato says yes. Are there any concerns sharing that information?
Okay, so we have existing IQ contracts or indefinite quantity contracts with Bars and Kubota, Jacobs Engineering Group, or Wilson Okamoto. Each has substantial planning experience. And using one of these contracts is not required, but it's just something that HDOT offered to possibly expedite the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think this group, particularly given the June deadline and based on past conversations and frankly, votes that we took, right? Like, would like to use that in order to expedite it. I think the question is what's the process by which it gets selected? Like, which one and how? And I guess, like, we have a lot of folks who are in different agencies. Do you have recommendations on how we should approach this as the committee? Because it seems like some criteria should have to be put forward, or do we just pull one out of a hat and hope for the best? Like, I don't know. I'm asking honestly if anybody has suggestions. Kevin, do you have any suggestions? If only because, like, making this kind of decision feels to cross us over into procurement in a way that maybe I don't know everybody's comfortable with. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but this is these are the types of questions we've been having of trying to, like, you know, meet the spirit of all these different competing laws.
Yeah. So maybe if you have some specific questions like that, you can send them my way, and we can, in between now and the next meeting, I can take a closer look into that, and you know, we can
great
distribute some type of information about it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I think that's really, we're just looking to try and figure out the right kinds of processes, given that HDOT hasn't had a committee like this. A lot of us don't do this kind of stuff necessarily, and how to do it appropriately. I don't want to run afoul of anything. And I want us to make sure that the stuff that we're investing in, we're doing it in a way that meets all these criteria. And I'm not sure how to do that. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yep, and there are some limitations based on just how the way the law is written. So navigating that's going to be, like you said, a little bit tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you know why we were so desperate for your participation. Sorry, but I'm glad you're here now. So okay. Well, great. So I think we've kind of accomplished one of them. Stay tuned for subsequent ones. I guess we'll just try and start. I think getting the plan done was such a big part of the law's mandate, and really getting that forward. As much as I'd like to prioritize projects too, I think the time frame for the plan is really the most important thing for us to get that going. So if you disagree, feel free to shoot emails, or I guess to bring it up in the next meeting. But we're going to kind of roll with that for right now. So okay. All right. Yamato asked one last question, although we are at 11, so I think we can do this and close it, which is, are they allowed to add subs to those contracts?
It's possible, but I think that's up to the prime consultant. And then we'd still have only a contract with the prime.
Okay. All right, just to close this up and respectful of everybody's time, interested members of the public to be heard on matters not included on the agenda. Okay, hearing.
Hi.
Oh, okay, hold on, wait, sorry, give me a second. I need to entertain a motion to extend the meeting then 5 minutes. Can someone help me do that?
Motion to approve.
Sure. Second.
Okay. Great. I missed who said that. Who said the approve and second? Heidi was the second, right? And Jess was the first. Okay, thank you. Just for the record, so I have it appropriately. Okay. Heidi, the other Heidi. Heidi, I'm mispronouncing your name, aren't I? But you know who yes, you.
No, it's Heidi. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you. Again, I am a parent to an elementary school student and a middle schooler, and I'm also on the Pearl City Neighborhood Board. And as I'm listening to the discussion, would it be possible to reach out to the neighborhood board, since they really do have a pulse of their communities, to see where they see the greatest needs for these safe routes to school? My children walk to school at elementary, and I definitely know some areas for improvement in Pearl City. And I live close to the Pearl City High School, which does not have sidewalks that connect it to the community. And that would be a great thing. So I think the neighborhood boards could be a good resource for your committee to really zone in on what the community wants in those areas. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think that's an excellent recommendation. I think just to kind of answer it sort of more broadly is that we are trying to set up a process that over time gets to that. But because of this sort of fiscal deadline of, we've been balancing that. But I think it's a good recommendation. I think the one thing to note that we have to be careful about, of course, is that the other islands don't necessarily have neighborhood boards. And so how to then provide, I mean, I don't think that means don't go to the neighborhood boards. I think it means making sure that we spend the time and energy over time. And that's actually really what the statewide plan is, like, how do we do this effectively? But I think that's one answer. The other answer is that we do have sort of a call for project concepts to help us understand some of this stuff going forward. I don't think we figured out how exactly to use it at this point in time, but I could certainly envision that being an ongoing resource when people have projects that can then be brought. So at least we know about them and can have it be part of the larger structure. So, but yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. So any other things, whatever it's called, things not on the agenda for today? Okay, well, with that, I think, are there any announcements?
Oh, can I just mention, Heidi Weber, you can contact me if you like to talk about these specific locations for Oahu. Thanks. I'll leave my contact in the chat.
Yeah, that's probably a good one, right? Seeing as how you are the Safe Routes to Schools coordinator for this island. All right. With that, then I think we will adjourn at 11:04 a.m. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next month, if not sooner for some of you. So,
Thanks,
bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Uh-huh.
Bye, everyone.